Okay, so as we get into the final recording on branding, this week's branding is going to include imagery from Lego. I decided, hey, let's do a toy manufacturer, and I would consider Lego kind of in that category. Certainly it does that as well as a lot of educational stuff. And they own several brand extensions to include Duplo, and their parks and so on and so forth, all operated under their main Lego brand. So, this week's discussion is going to be about the ethics of branding. Okay, and I believe this is going to be the last segment on this, as I give you more time to focus on getting those projects done and getting those websites functioning for your portfolio. So, what are the ethics of branding? Becoming a good designer entails more than the ability to produce effective branding solutions. It entails working by an ethical code of professional behavior. How do we know what is ethical? Does it mean relying on your own good sense or the general consensus or winging it every time we take action? First, let's generally define the ethics. In this passage from The Philosopher's Way, Professor John Caffey explains terms. Ethics and morals are terms that refer to the principles that govern our relationships with other people, the way we ought to behave, the rules and standards that we should employ in the choices that we make. The ethical and moral concepts that we use to evaluate these behaviors include right and wrong, good and bad, just, unjust, fair, unfair, responsible, and irresponsible. What is ethical design practice? The only answer is a multiple-faceted one, one as complex as being a responsible citizen in the said world that we live in. Behaving ethically means taking responsibility for your own actions. It means the full realization of the impact of those actions on others, both positively and negatively. To design responsible, we must consider several factors: audience, message, client, design. So we're going to start with the audience. In all our work, we ought to consider the audience's welfare. This is an ethical imperative. As a designer, your challenge is to act by a code that deeply respects and thoughtfully considers the audience, their dignity, freedom, liberty, cultures, health, safety, right to know, and sense of worth. These are the shoulds. The should nots include a laundry list of unethical behavior in order to distance branding and advertising from the earlier taint of hucksterism. Psychological manipulation, treating audiences like suckers. Branding and advertising professionals must communicate truthfully and respectfully, eliminating puffery and deceit. Do people view hair coloring as the science of color or as an esteem enhancer? Do people want to do business with banks that are cast primarily as efficient, friendly, or stable? Using research and insights into what and how people think gives the branding expert an edge on how to cast a brand. Keep in mind, though, that any consumer insight should be used to connect to people, not to manipulate them. If the visual communications professions and our clients were to agree upon a code of conduct, that would certainly aid their practice. The International Association for Business Communicators ethics statement, which they post on their website, is exemplary. It emphasizes the responsibility to the audience. So here's the passage. Because hundreds of thousands of business communicators worldwide engage in activities that affect the lives of millions of people, and because this power carries with it significant social responsibilities, The International Association of Business Communicators developed the Code of Ethics for Professional Communicators. The code is based on 3 different yet interrelated principles of professional communication that apply throughout the world. These principles assume that just societies are governed by a profound respect for human rights and the rule of law, that ethics, the criteria for determining what is right and wrong, can be agreed upon by members of an organization, and that understanding of taste requires sensitivity to cultural norms. These principles are essential. Professional communication is legal. Professional communication is ethical. Professional communication is in good taste. You need to engage in communication that is not only legal but also ethical and sensitive to cultural values and beliefs. Engage in truthful, accurate, and fair communication that facilitates the respect and mutual understanding, and adhere to the following articles of the Code for Ethics for Professional Communicators. 1. Professional communicators uphold the credibility and dignity of their profession by practicing honest, candid, and timely communication, and by fostering the free flow of essential information in accordance with the public interest. Number 2, professional communicators disseminate accurate information and promptly correct any erroneous communication for which they may be responsible. 3, professional communicators understand and support the principles of free speech, freedom of assembly, and access to an open marketplace for ideas, and act accordingly. 4, professional communicators are sensitive to cultural values and beliefs and engage in fair and balanced communication activities that foster and encourage mutual understanding. 5, professional communicators refrain from taking part in any undertaking which the communicator considers to be unethical. 6, professional communicators obey laws and public policies governing their professional activities and are sensitive to the spirit of all laws and regulations, and should any law or public policy be violated for whatever reason, will act promptly to correct the situation. 7, professional communicators give credit for unique expressions borrowed from others and identify the sources and purposes of all information disseminated to the public. 8, professional communicators protect confidential information and, at the same time, comply with all legal requirements for the disclosure of information affecting the welfare of others. 9, professional communicators do not use confidential information gained as a result of professional activities for personal benefit and do not represent conflicting or competing interests without written consent of those involved. 10, professional communicators do not accept undisclosed gifts or payments for professional services from anyone other than a client or employer. 11, professional communicators do not guarantee results that are beyond the power of the practitioner to deliver. 12, professional communicators are honest not only with others but also and most importantly with themselves as individuals. For a professional communicator seeks the truth and seeks the truth first to the self. Which brings us to the message. Designers and art directors are image makers, and the images we fabricate have both denotative and connotative messages. How we represent reality, the connotation of constructed messages affects people. We must scrupulously dissect those fabrications for negative undercurrents. Constructed messages can easily carry negative messages about age, race, ethnicity, gender, and religion. They can also be violent, stereotyped, sexist, belittling, demeaning, and foster prejudice or violence. The portrayal of others carries responsibility. Often we don't scrutinize or think about ramifications. For example, a renowned designer is deeply regretful for having used the image of a corpse on a CD cover. He now realizes the connotations of the image that aroused many viewers in a way he did not expect nor desired. John Bowers writes with great clarity, "We are responsible for the ways we address issues and transmit ideas, concerns, and information. While there are few guidelines for acting responsibly, continued growth, critical self-reflection, and openness to others can nourish the process." As visual communicators, creative professionals are the makers of visual representations of ideas and reality. Here are some of the thoughts to move towards a more responsible effort. Design both transmits and effects content. In a glutted global marketplace, the proliferation of brands should not compel designers to abandon their responsibility in order to get the consumer's attention at any cost. A representation of reality is neither natural nor passive, but an artificial construct that carries and communicates meaning with social consequences. Negative stereotyping must be avoided at all costs and must be recognized even when veiled. The client. Both legally and ethically, designers have obligations towards their clients. The AIGA has released a series of brochures outlining the critical, ethical, and professional issues encountered by designers and their clients. The series, entitled Design, Business, and Ethics, examines the key concerns a designer faces. Here's one of the excerpts. Ethical standards. A professional designer does not work on assignments that create potential conflicts of interest without a client's prior consent. A professional designer treats all work and knowledge of a client's business as confidential. A professional designer provides realistic design and production schedules for all projects and will notify the client when unforeseen circumstances may alter those schedules. A professional designer will clearly outline all intellectual property ownership and usage rights in a project, proposal, or estimate. Clients can expect AIGA members to live up to these businesses and ethical standards for professional designers. Though constantly professional work, AIGA members have documented substantial bottom-line contributions to corporations and organizations. For more information and case studies about how professional designers have produced excellent business results, go to www.aiga.org. And that is why I had you buy the ethics book, Ethical Standards by AIGA. But you will also find the ethical guidelines in the Graphic Artists Users Guild Handbook that I also had you get. Design. We use the term sustainable design to describe design that incorporates environmental matters, also called eco-design, green design, or design for the environment. Sustainable design is not to be confused with how some branding experts use the term sustainability to mean building longevity into a brand identity to maintain a long life in a changing marketplace. Here's a bit of background that will help you in putting sustainable design in perspective. Since 1992, when the UN Conference on Environmental and Development Earth Summit was held in Rio de Janeiro, we have made modest progress through the work of many scientists, business people, activists, political leaders, and world citizens in an attempt to preserve our environment and have a safer view of how actions affect all people and ecosystems. Incremental steps towards sustainable design aren't enough. We need to practice sustainable design. We need to take a big leap, operating in ways that are environmentally sustainable, encouraging judiciousness. In 2001, the Secretary General of the United Nations eloquently stated the goal. Our biggest challenge in this new century is to take an idea that seems abstract, such as sustainable development, and turn it into a reality for all the world's people. So that particular summit pointed out three four objectives. Scrutinize patterns of production for toxic waste. Seek alternative sources of energy to replace the use of fossil fuels linked to global warming. Rely on public transportation systems in order to reduce vehicle emissions causing air pollution. Examine and address the growing scarcity of water. Historically, it has been proven that inflicting harm on the environment contributes to a society's collapse. We can only deplete natural resources, cause erosion, and deforest to a point. We can only negatively impact upon the environment, pollute, damage, generate huge amounts of garbage, ravage, until the environment is no longer hospitable. Jared Diamond, the author of Collapse, How Societies Choose to Fail or Succeed, points out in his article, the ends of the world as we know them, that there are 5 groups of interacting factors that hold relative importance in contributing to a historical collapse. The damage that people have inflicted on their environment, climate change, enemies, changes in friendly trading patterns, and the society's political, economic, and social responses to these shifts. Essentially, the Sustainable Design Protocol is a call to dramatically change our behavior to look to the needs of everyone, as well as to the future generations. It is a call to suspend greed, recklessness, overuse, narcissism, nationalism, and unfairness. It is a critical call to respect the environment that sustains us all. Eco-efficiency is imperative. So the role of visual communication professionals. What is sustainable design enhances brand integrity through the adoption of safe and ethical practices. It begs industry to integrate ecological materials to create print, packaging, promotional applications, and unconventional applications that are entirely safe for people and the environment, as well as good for the economy. Sustainable design involves troubleshooting for potential hazards and wastefulness while attempting to optimize function and minimize negative effects. There are 3 areas of concern: materials, energy, and pollution. It will take rethinking in order to practice sustainable design, make prudent use of natural resources, and effectively protect the environment. Sustainable design is an entire study in and unto itself. This points towards the need for all of us to become aware of sustainable design. As designers, we must consider the materials we use, consider deeply how the materials affect, deplete, pollute, add unnecessary refuse, waste, the world environment. We can make choices to use environmentally friendly materials and inks, reduce packaging materials to essentials, and use recycled materials. Yes, costs go up when practicing sustainable design in the short run. In the long run, though, the cost will not be destroying the environment. We must preserve our environment. All of our actions have consequences. But if business is to make the world a better place, we also need to step outside our own comfort zones, share resources, and take a new perspective. Creative professionals give back to society. Brands, meaning their corporations, also ought to give back via grants, funding, research, charitable gifts, and cause-related marketing. We can urge companies to do so by supporting those that donate. The good life needs to extend to all people through good works, giving, and education. Big business can make it so. Many companies' actions positively impact society. Some actively work towards environmental protection, energy conservation, and consumer safety by conducting or funding research, getting involved in their communities, and conducting business ethically. For example, the General Mills Company has a corporate heritage of giving dating back to the 1800s. In 2002, General Mills gave away $65 million to a wide range of causes through the General Mills. The message is loud and clear. Corporations need to work by establishing ethical codes to eliminate greed and recklessness. Creative professionals can urge clients to take ethical routes. Of course, we can only urge others. Certainly, creative professionals can practice ethically, acting as role models for other professions. Visual communication professionals, too, need to adopt a professional code of ethics. Sustainable design must be adhered to in order to preserve our planet. The choices we make give our lives significance. The choices one makes define one's character, and every decision affects the planet and others in their pursuit of happiness and significance. As individuals, we are part of a society, and a responsibility is not only to ourselves, but to the larger community. As the great philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre observed, if we grant then that we exist and fashion our image at one, and at the same time, the image is valid for everybody, for our whole age. Thus, our responsibility is much greater than we might have supposed because it involves mankind. All right, you guys have a good day. And that is that for this week's installment of Brands. Bye.